My wife opened our marriage, tried revenge cheating, faced brutal payback, and ended up losing everything she cared about. Hey Reddit, my wife, let's call her Jessica, and I had been married for 9 years. We met in college, and everything seemed perfect. We clicked from day one, and eventually, we settled into a pretty comfortable life. I loved her deeply, and she seemed happy. We didn't have any kids yet, just the two of us, working our jobs, traveling, and living what I thought was a pretty fulfilling life. The turning point came last year, though. Jessica started becoming distant. She'd be on her phone a lot more, going out with friends more frequently, and just seemed like she wasn't as invested in our relationship anymore. Naturally, I noticed, and like any reasonable person, I asked her about it. She would brush it off, telling me I was being paranoid, that she was just busy with work or spending time with her friends. But something felt off, you know? I couldn't shake the feeling. So, being the fool I was, I let it go for a while, hoping it was just a phase. Then, one day, she dropped a bombshell. We were sitting in the living room, and she said, "I think we need to have an open marriage." At first, I thought she was joking. I laughed it off. She didn't laugh with me. She was dead serious. She went on to explain that she had been thinking about it for a while. She said she loved me but felt like something was missing in her life. She didn't want to end our relationship, but she wanted the freedom to explore other people. She said she'd feel less stifled if we opened up our marriage. She promised it wouldn't affect how she felt about me, that she still loved me, but she just needed more variety. I was blindsided. I mean, who the hell expects that kind of conversation from their spouse? I felt nauseous. My brain was racing. I asked her what prompted this, and she admitted that she had met someone at work. She said it was just a harmless flirtation at first, but it had evolved into something more. She swore she wasn't physically involved with this guy yet, but she was very close to making it happen. I was heartbroken. I had never thought for a second that Jessica would want something like this. We had always been a team. So, naturally, my first instinct was to say no. I told her that I wasn't comfortable with it and didn't see how an open marriage would ever work for us. She cried, said she couldn't help how she felt, and that if I really loved her, I'd understand and give her the space she needed. I was desperate to keep her happy, so I caved. I thought maybe I was being unreasonable, that maybe this was just a phase for her. So, I agreed. I wasn't happy, but I agreed, thinking it would be temporary and that things would go back to normal. Little did I know, that would be the start of the worst year of my life. She started seeing this guy from work, let's call him Mike. She was upfront with me about it at first, telling me about their dates and how much she enjoyed his company. I tried to act supportive, but every time she'd mention him, I felt like I was swallowing glass. She would tell me all the intimate details, as if it was nothing, and I just took it. I don't know why I didn't speak up more, but I think part of me was afraid of losing her. A few months went by, and I noticed something different about her. She was becoming more confident, but in a way that made me uncomfortable. She was spending less time at home, more time with Mike, and when she was home, she was more distracted, always on her phone. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just a phase. But then, the real shock came. I found out that Jessica had been lying to me about the extent of her relationship with Mike. One night, while she was out with him, I went through her messages. I know, that's a huge breach of trust, but I was spiraling. I had to know what was going on. And what I found was devastating. Not only had they slept together, but it seemed like they were planning a future together. She was talking about moving in with him, about how she was falling for him. I felt like I was drowning. Everything she had said about our open marriage, everything she had promised about us being okay, was a lie. She was emotionally and physically involved with someone else. It wasn't just a fling. It was a full-blown affair. I confronted her when she came home that night. She was defensive at first, denying everything, but the evidence was right there in front of her. She finally admitted it, and that's when she dropped the next bombshell. She said she had been unhappy for a long time and that this was her way of dealing with it. She was sorry, but it was too late now. She told me, flat out, that she didn't want to be with me anymore. I was in shock. I didn't know how to process it. After everything we'd been through, after all the years, she was throwing it all away for this guy? But I wasn't about to let her get away with this. I didn't react right away. I stayed calm, too calm. I told her I needed some time to think, and I left the house for a few days. I stayed with a friend, and that's when I started planning my payback. I was done being the nice guy. I didn't want revenge, not at first, but as the days went on, I realized that I had to do something. I had to take control back. So, I did what any broken, betrayed person would do. I hired a private investigator. The PI dug into everything. Turns out Mike was married with kids. Jessica didn't know that, though. She thought she was the only one. I fed her the information, and I made sure she knew exactly what kind of man she was involved with. I told her everything about Mike's life, the wife, the kids, the double life. She was devastated. She confronted Mike, and he tried to deny it at first, but everything came out. He confessed. Jessica was left looking like a fool. She lost the man she was falling for, and she had no one left to turn to. She came crawling back to me, begging for forgiveness. But it was too late. I had already started moving on. I filed for divorce, and it was a messy, ugly process. In the end, she lost everything she cared about. Her affair partner, her pride, and eventually, her marriage to me. Now, here I am, rebuilding my life. I'm happier, stronger, and I'm dating again. As for Jessica, she's a shell of the person she once was. She's alone, and she's dealing with the consequences of her choices. I've thought about her a lot over the past few months, but honestly, I'm relieved it's over. She wanted freedom, and now she has it. But it's not the kind of freedom she thought she would get. There's so much more to the story, but for now, this is where I'm at. I'll keep you all updated if anything else happens with Jessica or Mike, but for now, I'm just focused on healing. Thanks for reading, and if you have any advice, I'd appreciate it. Update. Hey Reddit, I've had some time to reflect on everything that's happened, and I wanted to share a quick update. The divorce is final now, but there's a lot more that's been going on behind the scenes that I haven't shared with you all. After Jessica found out about Mike's double life, she went completely off the rails. It was like the woman I once knew was completely gone. I didn't hear from her for a few days after the confrontation. She just disappeared, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I'd ever see her again. But then, she called me. It was a strange phone call. She was crying, sobbing, actually, and begging for me to talk to her. She said she realized how badly she had messed up and how much she took me for granted. She even apologized for the way she'd treated me. It felt so fake, like she was just saying the things she thought I wanted to hear. It didn't work. The worst part? She started guilt-tripping me. She told me I was a bad person for leaving her when she needed me the most, as if I hadn't been the one who'd been betrayed and lied to. She tried to manipulate me emotionally, reminding me of all the good times we had and how much we built together. But it was all just a tactic to get me back. I could see right through it. I stood firm. I told her that I couldn't just forget what she had done and that I needed to move on. There was no going back. I wasn't going to be her safety net after she had ruined everything. She cried harder, saying that she was sorry for what happened with Mike and that she didn't mean for it to get out of hand. I hung up on her. I think this is when things started to go downhill for Jessica. She wasn't the confident, free-spirited woman who had pushed me away. She was a wreck. A week later, she showed up at my door. I wasn't expecting it at all. She didn't even text me first, which was strange considering how much she was always on her phone. She knocked on my door like a stranger, and when I opened it, I saw her standing there, face puffy from crying. I didn't let her in. I didn't even say much. I just stared at her for a long moment. She apologized again, but this time, she said something that caught me off guard. I know I messed up. But I can't do this alone. I don't have anyone. Please, I need your help. I didn't respond right away. I just stood there. After what felt like forever, I said, "You've made your choices. Now, you're going to live with them. You didn't need me then, and you don't need me now." She left. That was the last time I saw her. I could tell she was broken, but honestly, I didn't care anymore. She had shattered my heart in ways I never thought possible. I wasn't going to let her back in, not after everything she did. Another update. Things got worse for her after the divorce. It's been a few months since Jessica's breakdown at my door, and I honestly thought that was the end of the story. But apparently, I was wrong. A few weeks after our final encounter, I started hearing things through mutual friends. At first, I didn't care. I was busy with my own life, rebuilding. But then, things got weird. Jessica was making strange decisions that no one could really understand. First, she went on a social media purge. She deleted almost everything from her profiles, photos of us, pictures from our travels, even her wedding photos. Everything was gone. But then, things started getting even more bizarre. She started posting a ton of cryptic messages, like she was trying to get people's attention. There were these long, drawn-out posts about starting over and learning to love herself again. To the casual observer, it might have looked like she was healing, but I knew better. I don't think Jessica was healing at all. She was unraveling. A few weeks after all that, I found out that she had started seeing Mike again. Yes, the same Mike who had a wife and kids. Apparently, After the whole double life thing came to light, Mike's marriage was in shambles. His wife found out, and their divorce was just as messy as ours. But instead of learning her lesson, Jessica jumped right back into the fire, hoping that somehow, Mike would give her the love and attention she craved. I don't know what she saw in him, he was still married, still a liar. But I guess misery loves company. I heard through the grapevine that Mike's ex-wife had already moved on, and she was doing much better without him. She had found someone who actually treated her well, and she had full custody of their kids. The fact that Mike was now alone with nothing but his own mistakes made Jessica's attachment to him all the more pathetic. Jessica, though, kept trying to convince herself that she was in control. She posted more vague, passive-aggressive posts online, showing off her freedom and independence. But I saw through it. I could tell she was drowning. Every single post screamed of desperation. A few months later, I heard that she had lost her job. Apparently, she had been fired after a series of poor decisions at work. Her once promising career had gone down the drain, just like her marriage. The friends who had once supported her started distancing themselves, too. They couldn't stand watching her spiral. To make matters worse, she found out Mike wasn't as invested in her as she thought. He was using her for comfort, not love. He wasn't emotionally available, and that hurt her more than I think she was willing to admit. Eventually, he ghosted her. She was left completely alone. By the time I heard about all this, I couldn't help but feel a small sense of relief. She had made her bed, and now she was lying in it. She had everything she thought she wanted, but it wasn't enough. I wasn't sure how she'd come back from this, but at least I knew that I had made the right decision by walking away. Final update. Okay, Reddit, I didn't expect to be writing this update, but here we are. Things have taken another dramatic turn, and I'm still processing everything. A few days ago, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Jessica. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't sure whether to be pissed or curious. It was handwritten, which made me pause for a second. When I opened it, it was a long letter, like, a really long letter. But the gist of it was simple: Jessica wanted me back. But this time, it wasn't the same pleading, manipulative apology I'd gotten before. This time, it felt different. She admitted everything. She admitted she had destroyed our marriage, that she had been selfish and blind. She told me how much she regretted everything, and that she was truly sorry for what she did. She begged me to meet her, just to talk. She said she had changed, that she had learned from her mistakes. She had been in therapy, she claimed, and was working on herself. She wanted to know if there was any chance at all that we could start over. I sat with that letter for a long time. Honestly, I almost threw it away without reading it. But then something clicked in me. I thought back to everything that happened, everything she had put me through. I thought about how I had felt when she first betrayed me, how I had been broken and devastated. And that's when I realized, she didn't deserve me. She didn't deserve the chance to come back into my life. She had already ruined her chance, and I wasn't going to let her back in. I didn't respond to her letter. I didn't even acknowledge it. So, this is the final chapter, at least for now. Jessica has finally hit rock bottom. She's alone, without the man she thought would save her, without a job, and without the life she once had. She's lost everything she cared about, and now, she's left to deal with the consequences of her choices. I'm doing better. I'm happier now, focusing on my own growth, and I know this is the best decision for me. The hardest part is over. The rest of the journey is mine, and it's just beginning. I'll update you if anything else happens, but for now, this is it. Thanks for following my story, Reddit. And that's a wrap for today's video, folks. Stay tuned for more exciting content. Thanks for watching.